third-party dynamics in the hospitality industry. As the moderator for this session, we have Mr. Puneet Mahindra, Managing Director, Singapore Hotelivate. Puneet comes with over 20 years of experience in the hospitality industry, having worked in various roles in hotel and corporate level in marketing, revenue management, distribution for chains such as Four Seasons and IHCL. Puneet is also involved in various industry-wide initiatives. Joining him on stage are Mr. 𝐊𝐴 𝐞𝐲, Managing Director, Development Asia Pacific, BWH Hotels, Mr. Karan Kaul, Deputy CEO and Head of Business Development, Absolute Hotel Services, Mr. 𝐊𝐴 𝐞𝐲, Vice President Development, Indonesia and Malaysia, APAC, and Mr. 𝐊𝐶𝐲 𝐓𝐚𝐤𝐿, Director of Development, Indonesia, Radisson Hotel Group. Please give them a warm welcome.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on this interesting yet contentious topic. Hopefully, we get some honest answers from the brands, and more so, Karan, I hope you are going to hold on to your case strongly, right? But I know a lot of people know you, but it'll be nice if you could just introduce yourselves and tell one interesting unknown fact about you that no one knows. And also, if you were going to build a company with a hotel, what kind of hotel would it be?
Good morning, everyone. Something interesting about myself. So I'm based in Bangkok. I represent Absolute Hotel Services Group. We have a broad range of management services, hotels, resorts, residences, golf courses. We do third-party management, and we have our own brands as well. We have about 61 hotels, 31 open, 30 in the pipeline, and about 7 golf courses as well under our management. Something interesting about myself, I actually spent the first 8 years of my career not in development, all in luxury in smaller companies, 𝐿𝐴, Six Senses, Four Seasons, and actually in sales and marketing operations. So development came later, it wasn't planned, I've been enjoying it for a long time.
And if you were making a hotel, what kind of hotel would it be?
If our group was a hotel, we would be a mixed-use, multi-brand hotel, maybe have a lovely golf course next to it, at the 4-star price point.
You've been spending a lot of time with Lada. What about you, Steve?
My name is 𝐊𝐴 𝐞𝐲, Director of Development for Radisson Hotel Group, covering Indonesia. Surprising fact about myself, maybe the fact that I'm more Indonesian than I sound Dutch. Yeah. And then about the group, I think if I would describe our company, it's a lifestyle company. It's very bold, inclusive, no-nonsense mentality, and yeah, therefore less conservative.
Ria?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is 𝐊𝐴 𝐞𝐲. Something that I guess most people might not know this. I'm 3/4 Japanese, actually, but born and raised in Indonesia. I spent about 12 years in the States, so that's sort of a combination. I'm the VP development for the past 11 years. I guess a hotel, I would do a lifestyle hotel. That's what I would do. Okay.
All in the accor world these days, lifestyle. That's the new mantra, huh? Sir, what about you?
Morning, everyone. My name is Cyril. I'm Managing Director for Development for BWH Hotels. So basically, I think you know more as under the name Best Western Hotels and Resorts. But 5 years ago, we brought an upscale part-scale to luxury brand called World Hotel. And this gives us the opportunity to rebrand the company to BWH Hotels because now we cover all segments from economy to the luxury segments. We have 4,300 hotels all over the world. So surprising thing about myself that I speak with a French accent, as you can hear. But actually I have a Polish name because my family comes from Eastern Europe. I'm also Asian because I'm also half Thai. So I'm quite from an international family. I've been traveling in actually 60 countries, so I've seen a lot of different concepts all over the world. It's very exciting. And I'm always happy to be back to Indonesia because it's a very beautiful country. Strong potential for tourism and hotel investments.
And what kind of hotel would you build if you were a company?
I think a new trend is about lifestyle boutique hotels, so I would like this segment. We have a brand called Eden, quite similar to Mossy by Marriott or Indigo, and I really love this brand. So.
All right, so let's break away from the lifestyle space since most of you want to get there. And let's focus on the rather contentious topic about third party and franchising. So, you know, in most of the West, the growth pattern for most of the big brands has come through franchising route. And in Asia Pacific, it's mainly been through typical hotel management agreements and or owner-operator kind of structures. So what role do you see franchising taking place in the near future in Asia Pacific, and what markets are real potential for that?
I think over the past 3 years we have seen a lot of instability in the market. The COVID came, we had the global recessions, we had also the war in Ukraine accelerating the inflation rates. So more and more owners have been looking for more flexibility, and they have seen the success of the TPO, the third-party operators in big markets like the US and Europe, and that's why this market come more and more into Asia Pacific. So there have been more companies doing the third-party management services in Asia Pacific over the past few years. I think it's a good thing for the owners because it got more pressure for the big brands to be more flexible, I would say. But I think the services for the franchisee will be the same. There are more brands and maybe more third-party management companies. So the role of the franchise is to give access to the brand, give access to the distribution channels. For example, a loyalty program with 57 million members. It's very strong in Indonesia. We have a lot of booking coming from this. It also gives access to the owners, to the global agreements with the vendors, for example, the suppliers of the mattress or TV, and also with the OTA. But I think some services will change. We work with the TPO, for example, some TPO can do the revenue management services. So because they have the experience to do it, we can hand over the revenue management services to the TPO. And if you look at market by market, I think Vietnam is a very difficult market for franchise because we have projects of 300 keys, 500, 1,000 keys, or 2,000 keys. So this project needs more support for HR, operation, and marketing. And Vietnam, I think many owners in Vietnam don't have the expertise to handle such big projects. So for some project in Vietnam, I would tell the owner, if you want a franchise, you have to appoint a TPO. Otherwise, you are not going to do the franchise. On the opposite side, in the Philippines, most projects are quite small, about 50 keys, 70 keys, so very good market for the franchise. Japan is a very different market because many owners would like to have a lease. So big brands like us don't do a lease agreement, we don't pay a rent to the owners. But some TPO can actually pay a rent to the owners. So basically, we can sign a franchise contract with a third-party operator, and then the third-party operator can sign the lease contract with the owners. It's a very good model, actually. Indonesia is more a market for management contract. We see more requests for management contracts. I think the franchise will grow over the past few years. A bit similar for Thailand, mainly management contracts. But over the past few years, we have seen more projects for conversion of franchise, I would say, over the last 2 years.
Rio, Ecuador has really been a pioneer in this field, right, of franchising. How many do you have in Asia Pacific today, and do you see that as a growing model for your business?
Well, I was thinking about this when you shared the question that you were going to ask about franchise. I think I'm talking specifically about Indonesia because that's where I am. Until recently, I'm actually not a proponent of franchise in Indonesia. You know, with my experience with the consulting before I joined Accor and with Accor, knowing the profile of the owners and the landscape in Indonesia. Okay. But I think what has happened is it's almost a perfect storm of like several things happen. For companies like Accor, same with probably Marriott, IHGs, and Hiltons, the BTI and 𝐿𝐴, for example, are now becoming like such a big pressure. On the other side of, for those of you who doesn't know, BTI for us is like base trademark and incentive, basically the yield of each hotel that we manage. And then the 𝐿𝐴 is the net unit growth. Is becoming very important. At the same time, if I compare like the kind of fees that we're charging 10 years ago when I first joined Accor, and now actually it has reduced quite a bit, right? Competition has become much greater. Now the cost of actually supporting hotels has also have increased quite a bit. So all of this is coming together and ushering countries like Indonesia. We have no choice, right? We have to do like, what we're doing basically is for secondary, tertiary cities, franchise will be the option, right? But what is interesting, I think, is actually when we go out there and offer franchise to owners, actually owners are pushing back. And they're basically saying, no, I want peace of mind, you know, you have the brand, manage my hotel. That's where the TPO comes in, you see? So that's why I said it's a perfect storm. So you have the TPO, which is like still a long way to go. I mean, it's just a very early stage right now. And the franchise also is a very early stage. There are issues with legal infrastructure framework in Indonesia. So we are at a very early stage, I think, speaking Indonesia. Now, other parts, I'm not very familiar, but I know that we're doing a lot of franchising. For example, in Malaysia, it's a lot more prepared for franchise. And then Thailand, places like that, I think we're going. So specifically for Indonesia, we're just starting, but we're going very fast. I hope that answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, what are your thoughts about this? We've heard from both BWH and 𝐶𝐞. How do you guys see it at Radisson? Especially your growth in the recent times has really come from Asia Pacific, and you've grown as a brand, especially in markets like India and parts of Southeast Asia. So how do you see this model evolving?
I think for Indonesia, like Rio said, I wouldn't say it's the most preferred option yet. It's still in a...
Or you don't trust the owners to operate the brands the way they want to?
No, I mean, I think it's the right time. Things are moving that direction, but I think still very slowly. Owners that already have been in the business for like 2 generations perhaps maybe are more confident on considering franchise, or more capable, I should say. So yeah, our last deal that we signed in Indonesia was actually a franchise deal. So it is a relevant topic, definitely. But to be frank with you, most of my discussions are still managed deals. So yeah, but we look at India. For me, I look at India as a great example in this space, where finding reliable and diligent partners and looking at long-term interests and ensuring that, you know, both short-term and long-term interests are secure, and incentivizing both parties in that. So it's much more developed in India, I would say, and it's a great reference, I think, for the rest of Asia, where, you know, it's really an integrated part of the industry where third-party operators are doing well and get to scale. And in Indonesia, I don't really see that yet, but there is room and opportunity. We're open for, you know, for this kind of discussion.
Karan, on your end, so firstly you were on the operator side, right? So people should know that.
Yeah, but...
And now, have you moved to the dark side, or is this the brighter side?
No, not at all. In fact, you probably find there's not much contention for us, because our affiliate group in Europe has over 240 hotels, and I believe there are 52 Accors, there's approximately 20 Radissons, there's a few Best Westerns, there's another 50 Wyndhams. So our platform there is very much multi-brand. There's about 6 or 7 partners that gave us, in total, about 16 brands, all franchised, where we operate, or let's say our affiliate group in Europe operates as the third-party operator. I think it's really about collaboration and communication through those relationships in Europe now. And exactly what was mentioned earlier, India is a great example. We're already working with Radisson. Cannot say exactly the locations because the deals haven't been signed yet, but Radisson and us jointly have approached owners where we're the third-party operator, and Radisson's offered a franchise brand in 3 very active discussions that we're going to sign very soon. So I think it's very relevant where you see all those metrics of earlier presenters, you know, increasing operational expenses, a lot more pressure on the business viability of your hotel and your asset, to really put specialized partners taking care of specialized areas of the hotel. And very much there is strength in everyone's distribution platform, everyone's loyalty programs. There is a personal preference, I mean, for example, lifestyle or not, and location specific, and the owner should have that choice. But then the operator that you have, or your operating team, should really be focused on the operational efficiencies and profitability.
We'll come back to that, but I found something really interesting. You said you work with a number of brands. Ria, how many brands do you have in your core portfolio now? I can't count. So maybe you can tell us.
40 plus, I would
So
say.
40 plus. Now there is a guy like Karan, he comes, as a third-party operator, and he says, I'm gonna help run this hotel, right? And we only want your distribution, and we want the brand, and all of that. How do you train these guys to deal with different brands? How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, currently we're only looking at mid-scale and economies, okay, for franchise. And I already mentioned about secondary, tertiary cities. So we're not going all out yet. But definitely premium, we're not going there. Luxury, definitely we're not going there, right? So yeah, I think maybe eventually will happen on selective basis. We already have some that we're doing on selective basis with owners that is very well known and know that can deliver. So what is also another thing that's interesting is like at the same time that we're being chased for this performance and the increase in expenses, we're also being chased now after we purchased all of these brands in the past 6 years. Now brand standard is coming back in a very big way, right? So you can imagine on one side we're doing franchise, we're doing, and then on the other side, brand standard is actually coming back. So I think the next 5 years for big players like us is going to be very interesting. This is my personal view. So yes, to answer your question, we're very selective still. And as far as third-party operators are concerned, we just identified maybe only one right now, and we'll continue. Now we haven't seen yet the foreign, like I know, like for example in Australian market is fairly established in terms of TPOs. So I'm pretty sure some of those players will start coming into Asia, right? So yeah, this is.
So Steve and Cyril, it's kind of truth or dare. Except on this one there is no dare, there's just truth. Which one do you think performs better? A hotel management agreement? Or have you seen a third-party operator actually do better than with a franchise format? So, model-wise, where do you see superior performance?
Is this question relevant to Indonesia or in general?
In general, and then you can focus on Indonesia.
I see.
If you have such a model in Indonesia, which you said you have one. Right.
Well, if you look at mature markets like Australia, like in Europe, and even India for that matter, you see third-party operators really get to scale. And why I say scale is because every company needs that scale in order to provide these services and enable and trigger markets. In India, we have very successful collaborations. We have 110 hotels in India. We have a huge pipeline of another 150 hotels. And a big proportion of that is with third-party operators, where sometimes even we offer long-term incentives where, let's say, Gujarat or one or two provinces, we give a third-party operator the option to grow the brand with us and incentivize them for that. So I think the model is there. It's just not yet applicable in every country yet. So for Indonesia, that's kind of skill is not there yet for third-party operators, I think. And that's the challenge. So what can they bring to the game, because I feel like to ensure all of this, it takes more than just policies or practices. It takes a stronger commitment to ensure both short-term and long-term interests are aligned. And how do you do that? I feel like first you look at it in a very micro way. You look at how can we both add value to a project together, the most value. And then you look at, if so, how can we scale this together to make it interesting for both parties as well. And I think this element in Indonesia is not there yet. But in the future, I hope so. Because we do encourage it, and I think there's still a lot of, especially in the mid-scale space, a lot of opportunities in this. It's still a risk, but yeah, that's part of the game. I think franchise in general, it's still a risk. I still consider it like that. But on the long term, we see it played out well, and to invest in these relationships deploying our resources, and especially in the educational level, where our systems contribute nearly 50% of our hotel reservations. So we have to make sure that this third party knows how to handle that. Then on the flip side, we have to make it interesting for all, like I said. And the most important is diligence. I think diligence in choosing your partner in this sector is very important, because once you have the right partner, the rest looks easier.
Karan, you want to come in?
Yeah,
Sorry.
just a short, sorry, Cyril. Just a short comment. I mean, I think maybe we need to ask why. Why do owners sign a franchise versus a management agreement? Just because Rio, Cyril, Steve come and say, I have a franchise to sell you, doesn't mean the owners necessarily can buy it. So why? And really the answer is very simple. It's control of their asset. It's more involvement in the management day to day. It's more involvement in pulling out as much profitability they can from their asset and being less passive than perhaps an HMA structure might be. So I think it's a very good trend to see more and more franchising and less HMAs, because it means there's a lot more direct involvement, interest and focus in the profitability of the owner's assets. I think that's important to remember.
We'll come back to that, and I'm going to put you on the spot on that one. Sir, what's your reaction to what Steve had to say?
Well, for us, we are more globally a franchise company. So in markets like Europe, Middle East, Africa, we do only a franchise, and we work with a TPO for most of our assets.
So the TPOs perform better than what you guys would have?
Some companies like TPO are very, very big. In the US, for example, 𝐴𝐵𝐺 Hospitality, they manage 1,500 hotels, so they are even managing more hotels than the big brands themselves, because they have the scale, and they are also able to engage the receptionists, the housekeeping, so they really add value not only to the revenue, but also to the cost, because it's more efficient, especially in markets where the payroll is actually the labor are quite complicated. Actually. So in Asia, the TPO are much smaller companies. We have less experience to work in Asia with TPO, because we also have our own management services. We provide management services since more than 12 years in the region. But we have worked with a few companies, TPO, for example, for a project in Phuket, just for technical support, and I think they made a very good job. So if today the hotel is doing well, it's because they have done a very good job in terms of design for the hotel, and as well for the F&B offering. Also in Philippines, we have 2 hotels who are actually owned and managed by the TPO, and I think they are doing very well as well. So I think it's a good model to have, because it gives more flexibility for the owner.
Thanks. Coming back to your question on profitability. So you've got a hotel management agreement model, has a certain cost associated to it. Now we want to expose the owner to a model where there is a third-party operator cost, there's a franchise cost. So how do you make this financial aspect really work? Isn't it more expensive? Now there are 3 parties and 3 people have to do the dance together.
I mean, they could even be more, right? I mean, Lada mentioned asset managers, very important. Outsource F&B. You know, you could have 5 or 6 or 7 people dancing. If you add up all the percentages, maybe on paper, it looks like it's a higher, more expensive proposition. But the idea is everyone focuses on what they're good at. Right? The brands focus on their distribution. They invest in the technology, in engaging their loyalty program customers in the brand campaigns. The third-party operator focuses on making sure the operation is as lean and profitable as possible, not maybe the lowest cost, but spending smart, spending where the expense is actually required and needed. Third-party operators will come with great relationships with suppliers. We'll have that database of employees they can bring in and make sure they have the right chef in the right location, the right housekeeping staff, for example, and have that ability to train and keep that human resource element as effective and productive as possible. So on paper, it might look like the percentages are higher, but even to that point, all of my colleagues on the stage here, if there's a great deal, and the third-party operator that's identified is capable, has a track record, and has been vetted, let's say, by such brands, we're going to work together to make sure our proposal together looks interesting. It's not that I'm going to get rack rate from Rio and I'm going to put my highest fees and it looks ridiculous on paper. Definitely there'll be discussion to give the best value proposition to the owners. So it's a collaboration.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. I think it's a double-edged sword, I think, this franchise thing. But don't forget that why franchise is being looked at anywhere in the world, based on his historical data, is growth. It's actually growth engine, right? Without franchise, HMA, it takes a long time to basically negotiate. Franchise is basically standardized, you know, take it or leave it, right? That you can't even change it. Some countries you can't even change the legal documentation, right? So I think it's a growth engine, and why I said it's a double-edged sword, because it depends on the owner, because at the end of the day, it's an asset play, right? Hotel is an asset play, so you're not only looking at maximizing your bottom line, but you also need to preserve your asset to make sure the value of the asset is maximized. So the balance of these two I think is very important. So a lot of people look only at the GOP or the bottom line. You can always go for the maximum GOP, but what do you do with the asset? Make the asset is. So this is, I think, is what a lot of people are missing. Just a comment.
Steve, one of the key topics of discussion around this is flexibility with management contracts versus third party. For example, typically when you guys do HMAs, it could be 20 years, 25 years, right? If you're lucky. With third party operators, it could be, 5 years, 10 years perhaps. How do you deal with that flexibility versus third party operators versus any HMA? What's the balancing act there? What are you guys doing? Steve?
In Indonesia, like Karen already said, it's a double-edged sword, like Rio said, but it's also depending on the dynamics of the third party and the owner. Like we can also talk about asset management or owner representation in that format. So it also depends a little bit what are the dynamics within the relationship between the three parties. What's the role of the third party? Are they really purely operator, or is it more as an owner representation? I see this in application in Indonesia, where an owner has its own team, other than the professional way with, let's say, Karen involved. So it depends a little bit on the dynamics, but if you look at contract duration, flexibility, I think in Indonesia it also applies. You cannot change the franchise rights in commercial terms in the country. So in Indonesia we have said, okay, only mid-scale and upscale we're gonna enter in franchise, and take it or leave it kind of deal. So we're standardized commercial terms, and so that's how we deal with that.
Cyril, coming to you. Taking in flexibility in terms of management contracts now, obviously there are owner interests and there are third-party operator interests. So as a franchise, how would you align the three and your own interests? Are there any specific policies or practices you guys have established to be able to deal with that?
I think we have to be fair with the owners. So of course, if they appoint a third-party operator to do the technical support, we are going to be much more flexible in terms of technical fee. So we work on 2 projects, the TPO, for example, in Phuket, Lion project with Unicorn Hospitality, and also one in Bangkok as well with another TPO. And we have charged a minimum technical fee. We know that the TPO are doing quite a good job on this matter. So we have to look on a fair basis, I would say, with the owners. And we try to negotiate more like global agreements, regional agreements with TPO, to apply the same terms actually for all projects, to have a scale, to be a win-win situation for both parties. They give us more projects, then we can give them better commercial terms.
Okay, I've got an interesting case over here. I was recently in Koh Samui. This I have not come across before. This owner got rid of the brand who had operated the hotel for a long time, and got rid of the sales team, put the entire inventory on Expedia, Booking.com, and Agoda, hired a third-party revenue management and distribution company to run the show for them, saving on costs, and extremely happy. And he says that's the model. If he builds another hotel, that's exactly what he's going to do. How do you guys react to it? You're third-party operators, brands, to such an owner, how would you react?
For me, is he going to sell the hotel soon? Because it seems a little bit of a short-term play. OTAs serve a very valuable and important purpose, and It's the largest channel for many of us, from many of our locations. But if you put all your eggs in one basket, you may be taken advantage of. But secondly, is the maintenance of the actual asset. You know, you're relying on the incumbent team, whoever your ex-com is, whoever your general manager is, keeping them being the best and the most knowledgeable with their jobs, and maintaining your asset and operating it in the right way. So I'm not sure, you know, if you keep everything the same over 5 years, whether that's better or not versus the other options. My comment.
You can work for some small project, depends on your location, what are your key target segmentations, but for a big project, I think it would be very challenging to operate on this basis.
Well, knowing what I know about hotel operation, I guess if that model can yield like a good bottom line, why not, right? Basically, that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? But we do have the difference is like we have our distribution, we have our fees, and then they're basically putting it, because I know that all these OTAs are very high cost, right? They're not cheap. So if it works,
Some owners would say the brands are also extremely high cost.
yes. So if it works, why not? I mean, it's one way to do it, right? There's, you know, so many roads to Rome, right? So.
Right. Karan, now one of the things that you said, it's about cost efficiencies and managing cost efficiencies, right? So how do you guys add value to an owner in terms of your ability to manage costs? Can you give some examples, and also ensuring that the asset value actually appreciates over a period of time?
I mean, it starts with how our fee structure is normally aligned. In a franchise and third-party operator situation, typically the brand will actually charge most of their fees on the top line. Most of their fees on transactions, anything through the distribution channels. Where the third-party operator will typically charge 99 or 100% of their fees on the incentive, the GOP. Now that could be incentives with certain thresholds, or it could be straight on GOP, depending how we structure it. So already there, the interest from the third-party operator is making sure, first, profitability is there, which inherently means we're making sure we're driving as much top-line revenue through the channels of the chosen brand and through the different levers and opportunities we have through that brand to bring in business. At the same time, we're managing our payroll, managing our utilities to the best of our ability. So I think really in terms of concrete examples, here you're talking about really choosing the right types of suppliers, really choosing and analyzing the types of FF&E that you have, what that replacement investment is every year to make sure there's a bit of longevity. We don't have, as a third-party operator, the comfort of saying, okay, it's brand standards, group-wide, and we have to implement this. It's much more localized, it's much more specific to that property, to the age of that property, and the positioning of that hotel, and really availability of supply. So you really have to choose a third-party operator that knows the market. I think that's very, very important. You can't, well, it would be a risk to bring in a third-party operator that's never operated in that environment before. I would say that. So yes, I think it's very localized knowledge, and I think that's where you get that additional 0.5%, 1%. And if there's a long-term relationship with the right brands, Radisson Accor, Best Western, and the others, from the third-party operator, we already know how to train up our reservations team to use their systems as effectively and profitably as possible. So driving both, top line and controlling costs.
Awesome. I can see that we are flashing some audience questions away. There's some interesting questions over there from the audience. So when franchising, what are the top 3 things you look for in an asset? Rio?
Well, I guess for brand owners like us is brand standards, right? I mean, so as long as it is within the brand standard, I think we're fine. So we're not looking for specific thing. Depending on what brand you choose, we give you a set of brand standards. That's it. If you follow it, you're ready.
What about you, Steve? Answer.
Owner's experience will be important for the franchise business, and also how many keys will be the asset, because if you have 500 keys, I think it's very difficult for a franchise, unless we have a prominent owner with a lot of experience.
See?
Yes, I think like Ria said, we look at the track record of the owner. What is their experience level? What are their expectations? We often still have to educate owners on the pros and cons of going into franchise versus management. And I think that reflects, the situation of Indonesia on franchise, still very early. So I look more at pragmatic things, or are they able to run it by themselves if that's their wish, or do they have the team, or do they have the party to support this? So I'm looking at it like from a very business pragmatic standpoint, rather than just brand standards. It's more than that as well.
So in a way, you're saying a first-time owner, there's no way you're going to franchise.
No chance.
Okay. I'm going to put that on record. Okay.
I thought it says in asset, so that's why.
Okay. Another interesting question: common points of contention in franchise contracts.
It's standard.
It's standard.
No negotiation. As far as I'm concerned, no negotiation.
By law. It's ruled by law.
By law.
So
Okay.
Yeah. In countries like Malaysia, you set the agreement, you registered it into the government agency, and you have to follow that. You basically say take it or leave it.
It provides protection to the brands, right? And,
Yeah.
We're fortunate in the hotel business that all the fast service restaurants, all of these other brands have been there before. It's in legislation. Every country cannot change it, and you protect it much more, I would say, in some cases than HMA.
Right. And another interesting question: do you have many owners that have transitioned from HMA to franchise to setting up their own in-house brands? That's an interesting one. Any examples that come to your mind?
For us, we have set up the franchise systems for which actually we signed a sub-license contract for 5 years, but the management contract will be shorter for 2 years or 3 years. It's more for the owners who are new in the business. They want to learn from our expertise to launch an hotel, to find the staff, to train the staff. And once the cash flow will be stabilized, then the owner can take over and they have the experience of do it and run the operation themselves. So I think it's a very good business model we have been doing more and more.
Right.
There's a couple of examples I know from another country, not Indonesia. It's actually not for newer assets, it's for older assets. And typically if an owner has purchased an asset, recently acquired it, they would like to continue a little bit more with the incumbent brand, and they will ask for a shorter term franchise. So typically it's not applicable to the larger groups, but regional groups will give some sort of a license franchise agreement for, let's say, 5 to 8 more years before the relationship ends. So I've seen it when the asset changes ownership, yeah, a couple of occasions, yes, but not really for the newer hotels.
All right, coming back to some of our own thoughts. Now, are they, apart from current, how many significant CPOs really exist in the market in Asia Pacific? And all three of you, the brands, can comment on that. And Karan, if you want, you can talk about your competitors, but you're not compelled to.
We just started, so it's unfair to say it. But we just identified one, and the reason why I identified one is because they're independent and they used to work for our board. I mean, that's a. But I have a feeling in the next 1 year, now that the word is out, I think a lot of the Australian players, a lot of players from the other countries will come in.
We have some global companies, TPO, doing the franchise services as well in the Pacific, like 𝐊𝐸. Right. It's a very big company. I can also quote Valor Hospitality. They are quite also famous in the market. And if you look at Indonesia, of course, top hotels like famous as 𝐊𝐸𝐞𝐲, and as well I think Nova as well, is doing more and more management services. And you have some more players coming to the market, like for example 𝐕BAS in Bali.
I foresee more and more coming in the next few years. I mean, in the last decade, it was very minimal. I think Indonesia is still a very attractive place for even these companies. Will be more attractive in the coming years when the legislation and the policies are more in place on foreign ownership and all these things. But predominantly, it's still very family and private-oriented owners.
It's all down to the decision of the owners in many ways. Every third-party operator isn't made the same. It's the same questions you ask of an HMA relationship. How good is your operating team? How good is your above property team? Will my general manager get the support when things are really tough from an area team? Have you got an area team in market, in country? And that the third party operator still has to provide that support and resources. So it's everything except the brand. And so those are the questions I think owners, when you're looking for potential third party operators, that's what you should be looking for. What are the resources? What is the support on the operational side?
Okay, I think it's just about time to wrap up, and we'll do that with a rapid fire. Okay, but you have to answer really quick, right? Okay, so I'm going to pose a few questions, and it could be a one word or a couple of words answer. Okay, so let's begin Cyril down to Steve. Describe the future of hotel franchising in one word.
I would say growing, because there will be more and more franchise business growing in Asia Pacific.
Okay.
Yeah. Growth.
Expansive.
Scale.
Scale. What's the most exciting trend in hotel management right now? Steve?
I think everything is getting more younger, more casual, and so I think from brands, from new brands, from the new type of products that we see around the industry. I think that's something very exciting. New generation, younger GMs, younger owners. So yeah, that's.
Ria?
Comeback of FFB.
I think it's the design aspect. So there are groups out there that are really bringing again lifestyle, the unique characteristics of hotels that we brought out.
Depends for the management element should be more flexibility from the brands in terms of commercial terms, I mean duration of contract, and also control, becoming more flexible since the COVID.
Cyril, one piece of advice you'll give to a hotel owner considering franchising?
I would say go fishing and meet with all the hotel brands, the one you prefer, because you have a relationship for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, so I think this is very important to meet the brands, go to their corporate office, to meet all the departments, sales and marketing, HR, because when you sign the contract, after the contract will be handed over from the development team to the operation team and marketing, so it's important to meet also as well other teams before you sign the contract.
It's not all about the brand. You still have to run a profitable hotel, so make sure you have the resources and team in place. Brand's important, sorry. But
So you're saying basically Accor and the rest of the guys don't have the resources.
No,
Anyways,
it's not-
Rio,
it's not only
you can
about-
catch him later.
I laughed because I was going to say two things, brand and distribution.
Steve?
Oh, exactly. Brand and distribution. Yeah.
Okay. Ria, this is a very fast one just for you. Will you franchise the Raffles brand?
Sorry?
Will you franchise the Raffles brand?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
All right, gentlemen, I think we are just about time. Thank you very much for your insights. A big hand of applause for our specialists and experts. Thank you.